Ladies and gentlemen, fellas, we got a good one. A good Thursday night, a traditional Thursday night game, a 41 implied total. The Taylor Heineke versus Daniel Jones, potentially the two worst quarterbacks in the league right now, going head to head at it on Thursday night football. Oh, it's going to be a doozy. And oh yeah, there's a lot of dollar rooskies to first place. And oh yeah, there's props to be taken. And speaking of props to be taken, so far people have signed up with the code SAL on Prize Picks. This month I get to see like how everybody's doing. Not on an individual basis, but as like a group, including myself in that. We have won $40,000. Now, not exactly, it's like $39,980. We are absolutely cleaning them. And it's halfway through the month. It's not like this was just like two good nights. We're absolutely taking Prize Picks to the cleaners. So I have 3 props for this slate so far. I'm waiting for more to come out. I'm actually recording this on Tuesday afternoon. So obviously some news is going to come out for the injury statuses of Saquon and what his role is going to be. We'll cover that. Don't worry. I'll be live an hour and a half before the game starts on Thursday night to update you. The projections on Patreon will all be updated. We're going to break down this showdown slate. We'll talk about the props. We'll talk about the side in terms of the Vegas totals or the side that I have a bet on in this one. And let's start it off right away with some of my favorite plays on the slate. And we can pull up the double box right here. And the double box is going to show you some of the guys that I early on have a lot of interest in. And the first one all the way up top, what do you like to do on showdown slates? You like to secure the high ceiling of some wide receivers. And we got a couple of wide receivers as yeses early on. And we have a standout play that I'll probably play 100% of, and we're going to get to him. I put a tweet out about him. You probably already know who it is. We'll get to him when we get to him. But Sterling Shepard right here at $8,000 is ridiculously underpriced, especially when you take into account Kenny Golladay being more expensive than him, especially when you take into account McLaurin's $1,000 more, right? This is a ridiculous price point of Sterling Shepard, who since last year has been the Giants wide receiver one. No. When they gave a lot of money to Kenny Golladay, he was not the wide receiver one. They might have given him wide receiver one money, but when you don't have an offensive line, when you don't have a good quarterback in Daniel Jones, you're not going to be able to throw downfield to Kenny Golladay. Yeah, he had 4 catches for 64 yards in week 1. He's obviously in play because he's a decent price at $8,200 on a one-game showdown slate and has touchdown upside, but give me Sterling Shepard all day. And I like Sterling Shepard way more. Have thought he's been the wide receiver one on this team for a long time now. What does he do week 1? He leads all wide receivers in snaps with 58, plays 95% of the snaps, and he leads all wide receivers with 40 routes run. Oh yeah, and leads them in every statistical category. 7 catches, 113 yards, a touchdown, and 9 targets. He is fantastic. The hurried throws are going to be there just like they were week 1, and probably every week for how bad this offensive line is. The hurried throws are going to be there for Daniel Jones, especially against this Washington front. Expect a lot of quick, short passes, and with Saquon Barkley still banged up, not running routes, he only played 47% of the snaps last week, Sterling Shepard is going to benefit by far the most. And now those are in no ranking order, that sheet that you just saw. Obviously the yeses are more important to me, at least early on right now, than the maybes. We'll update that, projections, ranks, ownership, the optimizer, a bunch of stuff already out on Patreon. You can check it out down below. So these are in no ranking order, but you can see right here that I do have Darius Slayton on this list because Darius Slayton was heavily used, right? He also ran 33 routes week 1. He played on 70% of the snaps as the wide receiver 3. We like that. And the big thing here is you're getting a discount. You're getting a $6,600 player who saw 7 targets in week 1, more than Kenny Golladay, second on this team only behind Sterling Shepard, and he's going to have a solid matchup week 2. The routes runner I like to see. The downfield usage is what I like to see. And the biggest thing, the price point of $6,600 on SuperDraft. If you want to use the code SAL, get a free $25 to play on SuperDraft. They have a lot of money, $50,000 first place prize pool on Sunday. He's 1.75x multiplier. That is probably, if not the best, the second best out of any of the wide receivers. We're going to get to the ultimate value on all sites shortly. Next up here is Antonio Gibson, and let's talk about Antonio Gibson. I mean, oh my goodness. Antonio Gibson, very similar to Joe Mixon, gave us everything we wanted and more out of these do-it-all running backs, athletic, dominating running backs, right? Joe Mixon goes in overtime for over 30 opportunities, 25 opportunities for Mr. Antonio Gibson. Out-targets J.D. McKissic, runs more routes than him, and out-targets him 5-1 in this game. 20 carries on the ground. The man played 36 snaps, led all the running backs with a 65.4% snap share. He was fantastic. He's not going to have the greatest of matchups this week against what last year was a top 10 defensive line for the Giants, and this year, at least after week 1, looked pretty decent on the ground. Did give up the big rushing touchdown to Melvin Gordon, but other than that, outside of that one pop play, did look pretty decent on the ground. That being said, though, seeing the passing game usage there, he had 13 routes run to McKissic's 10. I like to see that. The problem with Antonio Gibson, if anything, as you can see on this screen, is the price point is $9,600. I mean, outside of the quarterbacks, he's the most expensive player, and he's probably going to see a lot of that usage. But even when I look at that, like even when I'm looking at Antonio Gibson, he's my highest projected player on this slate, barely over Taylor Heineke. He grades out as a better play for me, factoring in the price point, than Heineke, barely over Terry McLaurin, then Daniel Jones, right? He's grading out better than all these guys. Gibson looks like a smash play. We'll see what the ownership looks like. His teammate, Terry McLaurin, also looks really good. At $9,000, Terry McLaurin is currently my 4th highest projected player on this slate. In week 1, he didn't have a lot of usage. You saw Ryan Fitzpatrick go down, which probably hurts him long-term. He'll probably see Bradbury this week. And when I say he didn't have a lot of usage, I mean from a target standpoint, like the guy had 100% of the snaps. He played on all 55 snaps. He's out there in terms of on-the-field snap usage as much as you possibly can be. He ran a team-high 26 routes, but it only translated to 4 targets. He did catch 4 of them for 62 yards. 10.2 fantasy points on a bad day for Terry McLaurin. If that's what his floor is going to look like, that's fine with me. And you had 70% of the game for Taylor Heinicke out there. So it's not like this was just one drive and you don't really know what to expect now out of Taylor Heinicke. No, he played with him last year at times, and he played 70% of the game this year. So McLaurin is in play for me. He obviously is a standout receiver. I would prefer for the price discount Sterling Shepard right now. We can keep sliding down to some other options. Logan Thomas is an interesting one because he ran 24 routes, tied for the second most on this team of the Washington football team. And you have Logan Thomas out there catching 3 balls. He finds the end zone, thrown that his way by Taylor Heinicke, but he's going to have a little bit of a tougher matchup, and he's $7,400. So that's my concern. Like for a tight end who probably runs 25 routes this week, who might see around 5 or 6 targets, but has a really difficult matchup against Reggie Ragland, who's actually a decent cover linebacker. That is going to be my main concern for Logan Thomas. He's still a yes for me because it's a showdown slate, and he is one of the 2 highest huge players on this team. But the biggest player right now, the biggest player to talk about is Dyami Brown. They messed this price point up. DraftKings did, and you can't take it back. The cat's out of the bottle. He'll probably be massively owned. I might have 100% of him. I probably will. He ran 24 routes week 1. It was thought that him and Cam Sims, Dyami Brown, the rookie out of UNC, it was thought that him and Cam Sims might split that wide receiver 2 role on the outside with Curtis Samuel out. Cam Sims played 2 snaps and ran 1 route. You had Dyami Brown running 24 routes, only 2 behind the team lead of Terry McLaurin. And now he didn't produce, so maybe if anything, this keeps his ownership a little bit lower because Dyami Brown had 4 targets, which is good. He actually earned some targets. I mean, he tied Terry McLaurin right up there. He was only behind Antonio Gibson by 1 for the team lead in targets, but he only had 2 targets. He had a catch for -2 yards. So we're hoping that some people who don't actually look into underlying stats and usage and opportunity see that he only caught 1 ball for -2 yards and think that he stinks. But he's a $1,400 receiver who's the number 2 receiver on this team, who will probably run right up there around the number 2 routes with downfield usage. I like that a good amount, and he probably won't see much James Bradbury. He is the best play on this slate. And now we can start to slide into some of the guys who are not as strong of plays but still look solid. And as we slide into them, I'll share some of the props that I've taken. These are the 3 props that I immediately took right when the salaries came out. So this is a $100 wager. It's a flex play, so you only have to get 2 out of 3 of them right. You don't have to get all 3 of them right here to profit. So Taylor Heinicke, I took him over 16 points. I've got Heinicke closer to 18 points right now. These are not the most solid props, but these are just the fantasy props which come out earlier. I'm going to wait for all the other props on Prize Picks to come out. I'll take them throughout the day. I'll put them in the Patreon Discord. We'll talk about them on Thursday. But here's a starting point. Taylor Heinicke, over the 7.5 points for Dyami Brown. I have him around 10 fantasy points in this game, which is insane for his price point of $1,400. And then probably outside. So Dyami Brown and Sterling Shepard, if you just wanted to go with 2, those would be the 2. Heinicke is probably the least secure one I feel good about, but I still have him over that number. And then you have Sterling Shepard over 12.5 fantasy points. I have Shepard for about 14. So those are the 3 ones that I saw the most. I'll probably add another 2 to 3, 4 player stat props once more pop up and I actually finish my stat projections. I have my fantasy projections up. That's why I took these ones. If you want to tail this one, again, we are up $40,000 so far, and this is like 15 days into the month on Prize Picks. Not just me. I'm up, I think, so far like $2,000 or $2,500 this month. But the overall community that I can see that's used the code SAL when you sign up, you get a free bet up to $100. So you get a free bet up to $100, and right now we're absolutely taking them to the cleaners. That's not going to last forever, but we're having a very good start to the season. These props are inefficient to start the season. Let's take advantage of them. You can tail this one if you want to. There's a couple. I'll put more in the Discord when and if I take them. So check that out. The sponsors of the show, use the code SAL, Prize Picks, beautiful people over there. Go ahead, match up with you guys. You have a lovely time. You take them to the cleaners, let other people from other sites and whatever else lose. We have a good time. So now you start to get to some of these plays that are just, they're going to project out for like 14, 15 fantasy points. So they have to be in play on a showdown slate. Daniel Jones, a 19 implied team total. Absolutely terrible. He'll have a massive offensive line disadvantage in this one. It's going to look really bad. He's not going to have time to throw downfield all that often. In week 1, he had 37 attempts. He turned the ball over on a fumble. Now he played decent, 7.2 yards per attempt, 267 yards and a touchdown. He looked decent. Like you're going to get Daniel Jones to have 2 great plays and 1 terrible play, like early season or early career Josh Allen. So Daniel Jones is in play. If I have to choose between Daniel Jones and Taylor Heinicke, though, it is really a coin flip, but I'll go with Taylor Heinicke at this point. He's going to have just better offensive line protection matchup than Daniel Jones, because Jones is probably going to be the worst, maybe in the entire season, this defensive line of Washington versus the offensive line of the Giants. We slide down to Saquon Barkley, and it's really hard to trust Saquon Barkley, because if you look at him, last week he only played 47% of the snaps, right? He only played on 29 of the snaps. He saw 10 carries. He didn't really run many routes. He ran 16 routes, saw 3 targets, had a catch. That's nowhere near his normal usage because he was limited. You're not going to see him out there all that much. And I don't think on a short week now against this daunting Washington football team that he's automatically going to go from 47.5% of the snaps to 70% of the snaps in his normal workload. Maybe he sees a little bit kick up if nothing was tweaked and nothing feels sore. Maybe he plays 50 to 55% of the snaps. That is still not worth this $10,000 Saquon Barkley price point. Saquon Barkley right now for me does not grade out as a strong play. I have him for 14.5 fantasy points. Obviously, if he gets in the end zone, that helps. But on this showdown slate, if we're factoring in the price point, Barkley rates out as my number 19 play. I think he'll be overowned because of his name value. Give me Antonio Gibson for the cheaper. Kenny Galladay's on here. He ranks out as my number remember 18 overall play. If you factor out some of the really dirt cheap guys who are like $200 and they're only grading out good because they're projected for like a point, he'll grade out for me as like right around the number 12 play on this slate, number 15 play on this slate, around there. It's just the fact that he's a little bit more expensive than Sterling Shepard. I prefer the price discount on the Darius Slayton. I prefer to pay up a little bit more for Terry McLaurin in a true role. I just don't think he's going to get downfield usage. But the usage in general was fine. I mean, they paid him money, so they're clearly going to use him. He played in week 1 on 85% of the snaps. He was third on the team with 6 targets, brought in 4 of them for 64 yards. He's a jump ball receiver. He'll have a fine matchup in this one. It's just the fact that the price point's a little bit higher. If the ownership was to somehow only be like 20%, 24%, 25% on Golladay, then go there. But it's going to be 35 to 40%. It's just how it goes with these showdown slates. And I keep forgetting to say this year in the videos because I keep saying hit the like button, which is cool if you want to do that. But hit the subscribe button if you enjoy this channel. Tapping the notification bell will let you know when we put out these videos. You can get in there first before the player props move, get the early intel, but also when we're going live, which is really important if you want to get your questions in before lock. I try and answer as many questions as I possibly can on those live streams. So be sure to do that. I appreciate that. So you have some kickers and defenses. Honestly, in these lower total games, kickers will be a little bit more valuable because if they have 2 field goals and an extra point, 7 or 8 points, and there's less touchdowns being scored, they have a real chance to get into some of these optimal lineups. You have Graham Gano in this one. You have Dustin Hopkins. They're both going to be just fine and in play for me. I'm playing at most one kicker. I usually don't really like to play kickers unless it is a Justin Tucker with a team total of close to 30 like we saw on Monday Night Football. So kickers and defenses, they're in play for me. They don't project out for anything insane. The defenses will project out for like 6 or 7 points. The kickers for like 7 or 8 points with not much of a ceiling. Interesting to talk about these tight ends from the Giants now. Kyle Rudolph and Caden Smith. Rudolph had the most usage, but Caden Smith actually started this game and saw good usage. The fact that Caden Smith, Evan Ingram, here's the big news, right? We're waiting on like Saquon's status update if he's going to see more usage. Evan Ingram is not expected to play as of this recording on Tuesday. He did not practice as of today. We'll see what happens on Wednesday. But if that changes, we'll update it in the projections. Whoops, we'll talk about it on Thursday. Otherwise, right now, it looks like it's going to be Kyle Rudolph and Caden Smith again. And we talked about Diami Brown being an insane value, but Caden Smith also is a pretty strong value. He started in this game. He played 46% of the snaps, but the big thing was he ran 18 routes. Those 18 rounds led to 0 targets. You are rarely, if ever, going to find a player who is $200 running 18 routes. Most players who are $200 don't step on the field. And if they do, they run like Willie Snead the other night, like 2 routes and hits the ball up and it gets picked off, right? Almost cost his team the game. But I'm expecting in week 2 a similar role that he got in week 1. I'm expecting damn near 50% of the snaps. I'm expecting him to be out there, especially because his offensive line is bad and they'll need tight ends out there to be out there and run 15 or so routes. And that's rarely going to lead to 0 targets. Even if it leads to 2 targets, that is pretty good at $200. This is not me saying play him because we have the automatic insane value, probably play 100% Diami Brown on this slate. It really doesn't make Caden Smith that valuable because is Caden Smith really going to go for 10 plus fantasy points? If he finds the end zone, 2 catches for 10 yards and a touchdown, sure, but the easier path to get there is Diami Brown. And by the way, Diami Brown at $1,400, you can definitely put him in the captain spot. I mean, this guy is more than likely going to see 5 to 6 targets in this game with downfield usage. There's real upside for a 3-catch, 50-yard touchdown game from Diami Brown, and at $1,400, you can expect in a low total game a 20-point captain, 30 with the captain bonus, to be in that spot. Yes, especially because you can fit in everybody else. It just matters, do all those other guys who you have to fit in, are they actually worth their salaries? Like, will they pay off those salaries to make it worth it? And then there's Kyle Rudolph, who's $3,200. He's also firmly in play. He's close to a yes for me. He played 78% of the snaps, ran a pretty impressive 27 routes, and he saw 5 targets. Only brought in 2 of them for 8 yards, but he's going to have a red zone role. He's very close to a yes at $3,200. If Diami Brown wasn't on this slate, or if Diami Brown was properly priced at like $5,800 to $6,800, then I would probably be putting Kyle Rudolph in a lot more of my lineups than I'm currently getting, but I just don't know how much value we're actually going to need. And we finish off this slate with just Taylor Heineke, who I do prefer, has some rushing upside, 17 yards off scrambles last week. I do prefer him over Daniel Jones. He'll have a better offensive versus defensive line matchup. He threw 15 times last week. He had averaged like 8 yards per attempt. He just looked fine. And then there's the rest of the kickers, defenses, and basically the backup running backs. McKissick, he'll be in play, but the usage was not that encouraging at all. He only played 36% of the snaps, only saw 1 carry. It was all the Antonio Gibson show. Ran just 10 routes and saw 1 target, nowhere near the usages last year. There is no more Alex Smith checking the ball down to him. This is not the greatest Smith for McKissick, and the week 1 usage was bad. Devontae Booker saw a little bit more usage because of the fact that, only 4 carries, ran a couple routes, only because Saquon was limited, and that didn't even look that great. Kadarius Toney's on here, the rookie that they said they might get a lot of involvement out of. The man only played 5 snaps, ran 4 routes, and he caught 2 passes for like -1 yards. It did not look good. And that's basically it. The rookie Gary Brightwell saw barely any snaps. Adam Humphries, I'll point out because he's $4,800. Humphrey grades out for me as my 20th play on this slate. I guess we can put Adam Humphries in play because he's going to start in the slot. He'll see a pretty nice matchup against Darnay Holmes. The problem with Humphries is that his big draw was that he was playing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, his former teammate. He only ran 16 routes week 1. He played 55% 55% of his snaps in the slot. He caught 2 of his targets for 10 yards. I'll keep him in play because I expect Adam Humphries to run 15 to 20 routes in this game. I think I kind of glossed over him. He'll start in the slot in this one. The problem is it's no longer Ryan Fitzpatrick, who actually had a connection with him. Fitzpatrick lost after the first 30% of that game, and then in comes Taylor Heineke, who was not targeting. He was targeting running backs, Logan Thomas, McLaurin, and Diami Brown. Now, it's a small sample. Adam Humphries in the slot will remain in play at 4,800, but obviously Diami Brown for the cheaper is better. I'd rather pay up for Darius Slayton. I would probably even rather pay down for Kyle Rudolph. So he's kind of in this no man's land. He's my 20th ranked play on this slate. He's probably the last guy that I would consider going for. So that's where I'm at right now. That is where I'm at early on in this one. The main guy I could see changing is Darius Slayton. See if I actually want to get him. See if at his price point of 6,600, if it's valuable enough. Like, that's the kind of a dead zone where if you're playing Diami Brown and or Kyle Rudolph or Diami Brown and a kicker, do you really need to ever get in that mid zone of the Adam Humphries and the Darius Slaytons, or can you just start targeting? And you probably can just start targeting the Antonio Gibsons, McLaurin, and Sterling Shepard tier. But thank you for tuning into this one. Be sure to support the sponsor of the show. Take that prop. Use the code SAL. We're up 40 grand as a community, which is just insane. Simple. SAL, the code SAL. You get a free bet up to $100. It's a limited time offer, so check it out down below if you want to join in on winning the Dollar Rooskies. If you want to join in on winning the Dollar Rooskies in the community, join the family. Let me welcome you home. You get in down below on Patreon. You get the Discord access. You get all this stuff. There's a bunch of stuff. Optimizers, ownership projections, matchup notes, 23 pages last week. The Sunday morning GPP strategy show where I break down how to go set up your optimizers, what you should be looking for in stacks, how to dominate for certain contests, single entry 3 max, 150s, whatever it is. And that's just a sample of all that's to come. So be sure to check it all out. Linked down below. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Like, subscribe before you go. I'll see you on the live stream on Thursday. Peace out, gang.